City Council is now in session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk Golick, roll call.
Markovich. Here. Spitali.
Here.
Venez.
Here.
Kalwinski.
Here.
Ulaki.
Here.
Higgs.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Penosa.
Here.
Opinker.
Here. Moving on to reading of minutes.
President,
Councilman Spitali.
make a motion to accept the minutes from October 27, 2014.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski to accept the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting accepted. Moving on to approval of claims.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
move for approval of claims October 22nd through November 12th, 2014 for council meeting November 17th, 2014, beginning with claims dated 10/27/14 and ending with claims dated 11/12/14, claims number 5670 through claim number 6037 inclusive, for a total of $2,294,926.99. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Higgs to accepting of the claims. Is there any discussion?
Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
I have claim number 6038, $1,200 to the Whiting Robertsville Chamber of Commerce. It was for the flyover for the Veterans Day Parade of $1,200. Claim number 6039, Three Seasons Float Company, $500. It was for the Veterans Day Float. I so move.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion on the amended personal claims? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Penosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Amended version of the claims passed, 9-0. Claims as written. Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs. Emerson.
Yes.
Penosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Claims passed, 9-0. Moving on to the public hearing on 1435, an ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the annual action plan and dealing with other matters pertaining to the expenditure of planned proceeds of the program year 2015. The public hearing is now open.
Alvin Cheeks, 832 Merrill Street, Hammond, Indiana. I'm going to speak on item B. In regards to the bond issuing, my first question would be is, of all the attorneys in the Red Book, the Red Book is a document that certifies whether the attorneys are in there and whether they have the certification. The second question, are any of those attorneys, Mike is acting crazy this morning, are any of those attorneys minority bond counsel? Over the years, that Red Book has been a great tool to find minority counsel and minority law firms to do bond issuing. In regards to the Park Department, I was wondering, has any of that bond issue been bonded out to any minority firms? Thank you.
Public hearing is also open for 1439, as which was just spoken about. Anybody else would like to speak on the public hearing on either 1435 or 1439?
Yes, my name is Scott Rakos, 3534 170th Place, Hammond. Listened to what was going on in the caucus, and I'm very impressed with the administration and the council for coming up with a way to consolidate our debt into one payment. I think it's uses foresight instead of always using casino money, which we all know will not always be there. And I also want to commend you for also making sure that Purdue Cal is a part of the city, because that's very important. Anything that makes us more like a university-type city helps our community. Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to speak under the public hearing? Anybody else would like to speak under public hearing, either 1435 or 1439? Hearing none, seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Moving on to communications.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I received a correspondence certified mail from Mr. Timothy Carnot of 3430 173rd Street, Hammond, Indiana. It says, Mr. Higgs, I am sending a copy of this complaint to you because I know you are an honest man with integrity. You are not my councilman, Mr. Opinka is, and in the past we have called him, left messages to no avail. So over the recent media events with HPD, I felt you could help our family get answers. I have called the mayor's office 3 times and no return call. This experience scared my family. I have filed a FOIA to get a copy of the alleged search warrant. I do not believe they had one. We want to have our questions answered. And that has his number. And then it has 3 pages correspondence. It says, sir, on October 24th, 2014, at approximately 7:15 p.m., I noticed a marked car, HPD car, that was parked on my driveway. The lights had been turned off. They were approximately 75 feet from 173rd Street. I thought it was odd as I had not called HPD. About an hour after my wife returned home, she told me a HPD car with their lights off was on our driveway. My wife said as she pulled up in the driveway, the officer started and called and backed up on our grass to allow her passage. We called 911 to find out why the HPD was on the property without our permission. My wife called 25, I think it's on here, it's kind of mixed up. And dispatch told that they did not know why the HPD was parked on the driveway. This scared us. My wife called back 911 and questioned to file a complaint. She was told to come to the police station, requested a supervisor be sent, and one was. The supervisor was very polite and courteous, explained the search warrant was being conducted next door at 3428 173rd Street. He also told us the female officer parked on the driveway for over 1 hour was conducting surveillance. We feel a simple knock on the door advising us of this would have avoided our discomfort. We would have gladly helped in any way. After a review of our security cameras, we discovered another officer and vehicle was involved in the search warrant. He pulled in our driveway, and because the officer with the lights were off was blocking his way, he decided to drive through my front yard instead of the other officer simply backing up and allow passage. This left a deep tire ruts in our yard. 2 days later, October 24th, 2014, my wife went to the police station to file a complaint. She went to the chief's office and was told she could not speak to you. Instead, she was allowed to speak to an officer. He told her no complaints can be filed, explaining it was an ongoing investigation. Frustrated, my wife called 911, the parking lot. She insisted that she could be able to file a complaint. The dispatcher told her to come back. A second supervisor told her the same as the first one. You can't file a complaint due to ongoing investigations. We feel that we were treated with disrespect, and also that our rights as citizen taxpayers, homeowners have been violated. Consequently, we are requesting a copy of the search warrant for 3428 173rd Street be provided to us under the Freedom of Information Act. We feel that this warrant does not give you the right to A, park in our driveway for over 1 hour with lights off, B, damage our grass, C, drive through our grass, D, delay my wife's access to our own driveway, E, not be allowed to file a complaint. Please respond to this complaint within 10 days. We would appreciate it in writing. Thank you, Timothy Carnote. Here, clerk, you can have a copy of this and make it, and you can forward it. I'll make a motion later. Clerk.
Any other communications?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs?
Received the correspondence from the Department of Planning and Development. It says, Dear Mr. Higgs, Mr. J. Higgs, is Anthony W. Higgs, Councilman, 4th District, I'm not the councilman of the 4th District, I'm the councilman of the 3rd District, 5925 Calumet Avenue, City of Hammond, Blight Elimination Program. Councilman Higgs, please use this letter as a response to our inquiries regarding the City of Hammond Blight Elimination Program. The application for the grant, known as the Blight Elimination Program through the Indiana Housing and Community Development Association, was submitted. Among the requirements for the submission of the application was significant properties being analyzed and recommended for inclusion of this program. The NSP Consultants LLC Development Site Evaluation Metrics to assist in determining what properties will be included in the application package. Initially, 25 properties were selected, and those being located primarily in the 2nd and 3rd council districts in the City of Hammond. I've enclosed a list of properties selected and were included with the application for the grant funds. Of the initial 25 properties selected, 3 properties were removed and will be replaced by 3 others qualifying under the program guidelines. Any further inquiries regarding the Blight Elimination Program may be referred to my attention at 219-853-6371, extension 318, R2 RADOWSKID at gohammond.com. Sincerely, Dennis Roche. Radowski. Thank you so much, Councilman Benet. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Any other communications? Communications is now closed. Committee reports.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
we're going to bring out council as a whole from 1435 through 1440.
Which includes 1435, 1436, 1437, 1438, 1439, and 1440.
That is correct.
Any other committee reports? Committee reports is now closed. Next be ordinance, third and final reading. Clerk Golick.
Ordinance 14-35, sponsored by Councilman Spitali, and ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the annual action plan and dealing with other matters pertaining to the expenditure plan proceeds for program year 2015.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
final passage of 14-35.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski for final passage of 1435. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
this comes before us every year and needs to be completed by February 2015. The City of Hammond is the recipient of the CDBG, ESG, and the home funds, which need to be appropriated. Thank you.
Any other discussion on 1435? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 1435.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, ordinance 1435 passes 9-0.
Ordinance number 1436, sponsored by Councilwoman Venez and Councilman Spitali. An ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Hammond, Indiana, appropriating the proceeds, together with investment earnings thereon, derived from the sale of the City of Hammond, Indiana, revenue bonds heretofore authorized to be issued to procure funds to be used in the exercise of the powers of the city or for the payment of city debts, together with expenses incidental thereto, including expenses in connection with the issuance of the bonds.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I move for final passage of 1436.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Venez, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 1436. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
this is the appropriating ordinance for the sale of the water bonds for the Chicago Heights water contract.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
in the caucus, we received explanation of everything, and the mayor gave a good presentation on it. And I think we should have the mayor come before the council and explain everything, because I know everybody's afraid about bonds and everything and all of that, but when he explains it, it's not going to really cost us.
Thanks, Councilman. Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
I just want to point out that this is as a result of litigation that was filed between the City of Chicago Heights and the City of Hammond. Litigation was resolved, and what happened was we, the administration, took a $1 million revenue stream, which was what we used to receive from Chicago Heights for the wholesale water sales, and we increased that to $5 million currently, and we're expected to see a bigger increase of that beginning January 1st, 2015, because our prices on our contracts with Chicago Heights automatically readjusts to 85% of what Chicago Water Company charges its residents, which means we'll go from $2.20 per thousand gallons to $3.24 per thousand gallons. Although it's $1.04 per thousand gallons, we sell 18% of our water sales, 2.6 billion gallons annually we'll sell to Chicago Heights. So it's 18% of our total water sales. This revenue stream that we're asking you to monetize is going to be used to help pay down debt, to get our budget back on track, and it's using proceeds of revenue we get from the sale of water in Illinois. I pointed out in caucus earlier that this is very similar to how our casinos operate. We use our proximity to Illinois to draw residents across the state line to gamble in our casinos, and as a result, City of Hammond benefits greatly from that gambling revenue. This is a very similar type of deal. We are in a unique position here because of the actions this administration has taken with regards to our customers to the south, Munster and Dyer. No other entity in Northwest Indiana could sell water to Illinois except for us, and we're doing a good job of it. And because of that monopoly that we have, we're able to generate extra revenue to help fund our budget, help pay for police and fire, help pay for expenses, road construction, college-bound scholarship program. I think it's been a real good endeavor. I want to point out that we sell water to Calumet City. It's about 10% of our total daily sales. That revenue stream will not be touched at all. It's currently sitting at $2.20 per thousand gallons, and that's going to go up to $3.24 per thousand gallons January 1st, 2015. We also sell water to Lansing. I know they're on a flat rate. I think it's right around $1.30 per thousand gallons, and they're on a flat rate, and they have at least 7 or 8 more years left on that contract. So that revenue stream is not touched by this either. So basically what we're talking about is Chicago Heights water sales. We're going to monetize, the proposal is to monetize about $1.70 of the $2.20 revenue stream. And that revenue stream is going to be $3.24 January 1st. So if you have any questions in particular, I'm here. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I have people here that can. And I want to point something out. I know it's been mentioned, I know Councilman Hinojosa had a question in the caucus about why is gaming revenue even talked about if this is all about water sales. We had Carl Sender who addressed the council and pointed out that even though that's never going to be used, we pledge it to get a lower interest rate. So we talk about gaming, and under a worst case scenario, gaming would be used, but The only way gaming would be used is if Chicago Heights stopped buying water altogether, because Chicago's always going to be more expensive than Hammond is, and we are Chicago Heights' source of water. So call us lucky because of our location, and call us lucky because of hard work this administration did to make it so we're the only player. But, you know, I said it last council meeting, I'm going to say it again. Gaming revenue is dropping, and it's been dropping, and it's only going to get lower because of competition in Illinois and because of the law changes and because of the economy. Water is heading in the opposite direction. Water is only going to get more expensive, and people need to use water. People don't have to gamble. So I would take water any day of the week over gambling.
Any other discussion on 1436?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
currently, what is the debt, Mayor?
This bond is going to bring in $32 million. That's the proposal, and that money is going to be put into, I know River Park debt is one of the things that's being targeted with this revenue, but so is the day-to-day expenses that, you know, it's no secret that we've been using gaming revenue to shore up our budget, and sometimes we fall a little short, and we roll that operating balance into or that deficit into the next year, and if you do that a couple times, you're looking at a big number. That debt is going to be retired from this proceed also. And when you talk about debt, this is not what I consider debt. I consider debt something that I have to pay back. If I take debt into my house and I have to pay it back, that's debt. This is not debt that a Hammond resident's going to bear. This is debt that's being paid through the revenues we get from selling water to Chicago Heights only. So thank you for the question, Councilman Higgs.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, out of the, assuming that we borrow the whole 36.5 million, how much of that is going to be spent in 2015? And I know you had mentioned, and you and the city controller had mentioned that when it was 30 million, that there was going to be $4.5 to $5 million left over surplus. And now that we're borrowing another 6.5, does that make it that we're going to have $11 million surplus, so we're not spending the whole 36, and we're going to have $10-11 million left over for surplus for a rainy day, or can you explain that?
The projection was, Councilman, first off, when we do bond issues, they put a higher number on the bond issue. So they say 36, it's basically up to 36. The goal is for us to net 30. All right, so I know part of the 36 that's in front of you is like a security deposit. I forgot what the term is, Chris. Carl? Debt service reserve, and it's about $3 million set aside just for debt service reserve. That's like when you move into an apartment and they require a security deposit. We will get that money back, but it'll be 18 years from now, Councilman Hinojosa. So, what was the other question?
And when this was first coming out, that you and the city controller were saying that there was going to be like an extra $4.5 to $5 million surplus left over, but now if we wound up
well, the projection is, first off, we already passed our budget for 2015, voted 9-0, I signed it. So that budget's been set, and as the councilmen are full aware, and I am, we all give ourselves a strict diet on the use of gaming revenue next year. Each council person has $500,000 for capital projects in their district, and the mayor has $500,000 for capital projects across the entire city. As you all know, that's $1 million less than I was entitled to under city ordinance. I did it because I wanted to hold myself to the same standards as the councilmen. Because of what we did there, and because of the monetization of this water revenue and built into the budget, I know Heather was projecting that when we're doing our 2016 budget, we'll be looking at possibly a couple bucks in the bank, Councilman Hinojosa, instead of looking at red ink like we usually look at when we're doing our budgets. And as you know, when we do our budget, it's usually red ink everywhere. We're saying because of what we did in the budget that was passed and what we're doing, hopefully when you pass this measure right now, that when we're doing our budget a year from now, it's going to be a lot different story.
Mr. President, one more question.
Sure.
Do you project that by what year? Because for next year, we're going to get $500,000.
Yes,
Do
sir.
you project what it's going to be for 2016, 2017?
I could do quick math. Most of our debt will be paid off because of this, but it really depends on what kind of gaming revenue we're going to have. You know, when I took over and when you took over, Councilman, we would get $34 million a year on gaming revenue from the old boat, from the little tiny boat that the Empress used. Then Caesars Entertainment comes along and they built what we have now, which is the barge, and they expected revenues to be way higher than they are now. When they first opened that was in 2008. In 2009 and 2010, we were getting around $42 million a year in gaming revenue, okay? Gaming revenue is down to about $33 million in 2014. In 2015, if it hits 30, I'd be happy. It's going in the wrong direction. Why? It's going in the wrong direction for a number of reasons. People don't gamble as much. There's more competition. In casinos, Des Plaines opened up a brand new casino. That hurt us. There's more competition in the supermarkets and in the restaurants. People are gambling in Illinois in a restaurant, in a grocery store. So there's fewer and fewer reasons to come to Hammond to gamble than there was when we took over. So let's say that we hit $30 million next year of gaming revenue, Councilman. We're still going to owe our $3.5 million to the RDA. So it knocks us down to about $26.5 million. And then, depending if we're short on our budget, which I imagine, let's say we're 10 short on the budget, which has been typical. Take 10 off of that. That leaves about 1.6, 1.7 million. I think that's where you're looking at. We're going to be in that ballpark.
How about the media rumor of the Gazette that the Horseshoe, or I imagine Caesars Entertainment, is going to file bankruptcy? How is that going to affect us? Anybody talk to the people from the casinos as far as is that really going to happen in 2015, and how is that going to affect us?
I talked to Dan Ida today, actually, about this very issue. Him and I spoke, and he pointed out that Caesars it's a Horseshoe subsidiary of Caesars, and if Caesars does file bankruptcy, it's not going to affect local operations at all. It's not going to affect local development agreements at all. It's not going to affect the conditions that Horseshoe has with the state of Indiana to be able to gamble in Indiana. It may happen, it may not happen, but I did talk to Dan, and he said, Mayor, if it does happen, you won't notice a difference. He said, United Airlines went through bankruptcy and the planes kept flying and people still, got their reward miles. And he says, Majestic Star Casino went through a bankruptcy also, and people still went there and gambled, and they still recognized the points, the honors points that they earned. So if that does happen, Councilman Hinojosa, it's nothing that we can control, but I don't think that the customers of Horseshoe would notice a difference, and I don't think we would notice a difference either. And I trust Dan Ida very much. Him and I have a really good relationship, and I know if he thought there was something to worry about, he would tell me. I do know that about him. But I appreciate you bringing that up. I was concerned also about that.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 1436.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
No.
Opinker.
Yes, 1436 passes 8-1.
Ordinance 14-37, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. And ordinance amending ordinance number 8574, also known as section 72.016 of the Hammond Municipal Code as it pertains to administrative towing fees.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 1437.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 1437. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, can I have that ordinance read in its entirety, please?
Councilman Higgs, have you read that ordinance?
I have, but I would like it read for the general public as well. Clerk, can you please read that ordinance?
Councilman, actually, the clerk by the statute is only supposed to read it if there's been a second.
I make a motion, Mr. President.
There's a motion that Clerk Golick reads 1437 in its entirety. Do I have a second?
Second.
Whereas ordinance 8574, also known as section 72.016 of the Hammond Municipal Code, pertains to the fees charged by the City of Hammond for processing and releasing a towed vehicle to confirm the vehicle is registered, insured, and the person claiming the vehicle is the owner and legal to drive the vehicle. And whereas this fee is separate and distinct from the towing bill and reflects the administrative costs incurred by the Hammond Police Department to process and provide the release of the vehicle, and has not been increased since 2004, and is far lower than the fee charged by Lake County, Indiana. And whereas the Hammond Police and Hammond Councilwoman at Large wish to amend the ordinance to increase the fee from $20 to $75, and now therefore be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Hammond that Ordinance 8574, also known as Section 72.016 of the Hammond Municipal Code, which pertains to administrative towing fees, be amended as follows. Section 72.016, the administrative towing fee. A, whenever the Hammond Code Enforcement Department, through court order, or Hammond Police Department orders that any vehicle be towed from any location, and that vehicle is later claimed by the owner shall be required to obtain a vehicle release from the Hammond Police Department prior to retrieving the vehicle from impound storage. The Hammond Police Department shall assess an administrative fee of $75 against the owner of record in exchange for this release. This fee shall be collected in addition and separately to any and all other applicable towing charges which are collected by the authorized towing services. Any party wishing to remove any items from the towed vehicle must first obtain the vehicle release from the Hammond Police Department. B, the Hammond Common Council, by this ordinance, authorizes the creation of an environmental fee which shall be determined by the Hammond Board of Public Works to cover the environmental cost of towed vehicles. C, the Hammond City Controller shall deposit the administrative towing fee created by this section into the Vehicle Release Fund established by this section for appropriation and expenditure pursuant to established guidelines.
Thank you, Clerk Golick.
Council, etc.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich?
I have a couple questions. You know, it's a police order tow, but last year when we had all of this snow, when they wanted to plow the streets, they went out and they towed people's cars just to get them off the street so we can tow it or plow the street. And I don't believe we were charging people for that, and most of the time, I believe, like at Strax, they put them in Strax parking lot until they can claim them, but just so we know for sure that this is not going to impact that all of a sudden that just because it's a police order toll, they're not paying this fee now. I mean, that's a question I'm asking, and I'm sure that's not the intent of this ordinance.
Mr. President, I agree with Councilman Markovich. I mean, in a situation like that, that's an emergency, you don't take advantage of the resident. This is more, typically it's, you know, you get pulled over, you're drinking and driving, and you get arrested, and your car gets impounded. You know, this typically the type of situation.
I just want to make
or they
that
leave a car
clear.
abandoned and it's towed because it's abandoned. I agree with you. And we have situations where we waive the towing fees in a situation like that where it's an emergency and we need to clear out the street. We're not going to tow their car and then charge them.
The other thing is this environmental fee. Why would there be an environmental fee? Now that's what I don't understand.
I'm going to have corporate counsel address that.
Currently, there is no U.S. EPA or Indiana Department of Environmental Management regulation of towing. As you know, with towed vehicles, there's a lot of fluids leaked, everything, antifreeze, transmission fluid, radiator fluid, oil, and we just need to make sure that it's properly disposed of. It's not just being drained into our sewer system, because as you know, we're paying to clean all the stormwater now. So it's just it hasn't come to fruition yet, but it's just authorized. If it should be determined that there is additional inspection needed by HDEM, this would cover their costs.
Well, I understand all of that, but like, when they call out a towing company for a wreck or tow, there's the antifreeze and everything on the ground, and that towing company's responsible for that, for the cleanup. It's
Correct.
all part of the cleanup.
But when it gets back to the yard, it keeps dripping. And
Well, but see, that's his property, so now they're gonna be able to collect an environmental fee to towing outfit?
his property, however, it's our storm drains that the fluids go into if they're not properly contained.
I'd be willing to bet that a lot of these junkyards or towing fleets don't have sewers in their lots.
Well, there's storm drains.
I don't believe so. I don't believe the junkyards have storm sewers, or it's just going on the ground or whatever. I mean, that's probably something we need to check into and look at.
Right, well, that's why HDEM's going to go out and do it.
Oh, they're gonna do it?
Yeah.
So how's an environmental fee gonna apply?
We haven't gotten that far yet, but this is just to authorize it when that comes to pass.
Will we be notified if and when the Board of Works determines that?
Well, yeah, their minutes are always available and their meetings are always online. You can
Well,
watch.
I mean, no, I mean, if they're gonna start we're okaying it by this ordinance, authorizes the creation of environmental fee, which shall be determined by the Hammond Board of Public Works of State. Maybe we should take that out until you guys determine it, and then come back and we'll add it to the ordinance as an addendum then.
I mean, it's up to you, but right now it's not harming anything. The Board of Works hasn't done anything. However, we just want to have something in place so that we can protect all this expensive combined sewer overflow and stormwater treatment that we're experiencing with the sanitary district.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, but I would request that the law department send out letters to all the towing companies, wherever they have storage, and ask if they do have storm drains and so forth and all of that.
Well,
Verify this.
I'm sure that's easy enough to check with engineering. I don't think we need to ask them. I'm sure Stan's got the big maps of everything. So engineering can verify it probably this week.
Whatever has to be done, that's all I'm asking though.
Right.
Because if we're imposing this, I don't believe, like Pick and Pull, I don't think they have storm sewers over there, or.
Oh, they'd have to with the size of them? They'd absolutely have
I
to.
mean, that's something we need to ask about.
If not, then their lot's flooding.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
Councilman Markovich, you're posing questions, but are you going to put that in form of a motion? The dialogue and conversation is fine, but in order for you to see it executed, you must.
Well, I've asked her if the law department would send letters out, and she says that she's forwarding it, or the engineering department should know.
I didn't hear that.
We can probably do that on new and finished business then.
There you go.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
1537.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 1437 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 14-38, sponsored by Councilman Ulaki and Higgs. An ordinance creating a new fund, Fund Number 018, for the City of Hammond, for purposes of acquiring and demolishing blighted residential structures in accordance with the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority Blight Elimination Program.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I move for final passage of 14-38. I so move.
It's a motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
this is for the grant for the blight elimination program throughout the city of Hammond, but it's only going to affect two particular districts. That's the 2nd and 3rd.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Ordinance 1438 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 14-39, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. An ordinance of the City of Hammond, Lake County, Indiana, concerning the issuance and sale of bonds of the Park Recreation District of the city, the appropriation of the proceeds of the bonds, and other matters connected therewith.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
move for final passage of 14-39.
There's a motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
I'd like to thank the mayor and his administration for getting this partnership with Purdue Calumet College in helping expand Purdue Calumet's athletic program. The total bond is $7.3 million, needed for construction and equipping of the multi-purpose outdoor sports complex located at Dowling Park. Also, replacing a roof on the Civic Center. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor?
I'm here to answer any questions. I got people that can answer the detailed questions that I couldn't answer, but I do know, big picture-wise, that this bond for a $90,000 house will result in a $9 increase for a $90,000 home. That's the max we'll pay. What this project is, $7.3 million bond, as Councilman Spitali indicated, it also helps the re-roof the Hammond Civic Center, whose roof is not adequate for high winds. Maybe 20 years ago when the roof was built, 70 miles an hour, which is what it was rated for, was acceptable. And now it's 80, or we're going to 80. And I know right now we have roof issues at the Civic Center, so this was sort of an emergency repair that was included into this bond. This bond will get the Dowling complex, which is located in the heart of Hessville. It'll get it to where the baseball field, the softball field, the tennis courts, the soccer field, where men's and women's soccer will be played, men's softball, women's baseball, men's and women's tennis will all be out of the Dowling complex. There will also be a walking path around the entire complex for neighborhood use. These facilities, when they're not being used by Purdue Cal, will be for use by the neighbors. I think it's great. I'm an assistant coach for the baseball team at Purdue Cal, and I want to point out I make $0.00 doing this. But I do know a lot about Purdue and the athletic program and the young men and women that are now coming to Hammond, Indiana for their education because of this program. And I'd like to point out the athletic director for Purdue Cal, Rick Costello, is also here. Thank you very much, Rick, for coming out if you have any questions. But Purdue Cal is one of Hammond's top employers. And when I took over as mayor in 2004, there was a fear in Hammond that Purdue Cal was stepping away from our city. And I can tell you that here we are 11 years later, and Purdue Cal is not stepping away. They're stepping in, and they're investing, and they're a part of our community. And it's a great part of our community. I think that these athletic facilities are going to cement that relationship, and for 50 years, maybe even longer, Purdue Cal and Hammond are going to be arm in arm. And I think that's good for Hammond. So I appreciate the council for considering this.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
my question would be, is Purdue donating anything to this project?
Yes, sir. We're working through the details of that right now. But right now, the city fronted the cost, and we're working through details on either Purdue's going to buy the fields themselves from the city of Hammond, councilman, or we're going to come up with some type of use agreement where Purdue basically pays rent. My choice, I'd rather see them buy, and we're working on that issue as we speak. And if Purdue did buy the fields from the city, it would be literally the fields themselves. The park would still be owned by the city of Hammond. The parking lots would still be owned by the city of Hammond. The walking path would still, it'd literally be the fields Purdue bought. The reason Purdue may want to buy it down the road, nothing set in stone at this point, is if Purdue wants to build a big scoreboard on the baseball field, for instance, or on the softball field or the soccer field. Why would they build a brand new scoreboard on fields that were owned by the city of Hammond? These types of issues are being brought up, and we're working through these details as we speak.
Any other discussion?
And, Mr. President, the cost of this project will get us to what I consider a completed state, meaning the frills aren't there. And I know that Athletic Director Costello has big plans. He wants to install these really nice press boxes, and he wants the fields to be lit. He wants them to be top quality. And I want them to be too. And I think one day they will be there. But this gets us to the base point where we could turn the fields over and say, here you go, Purdue. If it's going to come with extra frills and all these extras that want to be added by the Purdue administration, that's going to be done at Purdue's cost down the road.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 1439.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
No.
Opinker.
Yes. Ordinance 1439 passes 8-1.
Ordinance 14-40 sponsored by Councilwoman Venez and Councilman Spitali. An ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Hammond, Indiana, authorizing the issuance and sale of revenue bonds of the City of Hammond, Indiana, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $36,500,000 to procure funds to be used in the exercise of the powers of the city or for the payment of city debts, together with expenses in connection with the issuance of the bonds.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I move for final passage of 1440.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Venez, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
yes, this is the authorizing ordinance for the issuance of the revenue bonds from the Chicago Heights water contract.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Clerk, roll call vote on 1440.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
No.
Emerson.
Yes.
Hinosa.
No.
Opinker.
Yes. Ordinance 1440 passes 7-2.
Mr. Chairman,
President Opinker, that concludes the reading of ordinances for final passage.
Thank you, Clerk Golick. Councilman Markovich?
just for point of clarification on the Exhibit A that we received for this bond, it shows that there's a profit or a coverage of $1,621,589 that we're going to be reaping from the sale of these bonds.
Okay, moving on, introduction of ordinances.
Ordinance, item A, ordinance 14-41, sponsored by Councilwoman Venez. An ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within the Hammond City Court 2014 budget.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I move for first and second reading and place in council as a whole.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Venez, a second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
as we discussed in caucus back in March, we established a non-reverting fund for dollars that were generated by a local infraction deferral program. At that time, Judge Harkin said that his intention was to use the funding for part-time salaries, and he is now looking to transfer from one line item to another $10,000 for part-time salaries.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
Item B, ordinance 14-42, sponsored by Councilman Emerson. An ordinance amending Title VII of the Hammond Municipal Code, Traffic Schedule 3, and setting a school speed zone limit at 165th and Holman Avenue for 25 miles per hour.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I move for first and second reading and that this be placed in council as a whole.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President?
Councilman Hinojosa. I'm sorry, Councilman Emerson.
Yes, this is basically, Kenwood School is right there, 165th and Holman, and the safety of the elementary school children are top concern, and people tend to speed up a little bit there for gas and various things coming in and out of our city.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
President Opinker, that concludes the introduction of ordinances.
Thank you, Clerk Golick. Moving on to resolutions.
Item A, Resolution 14R-31, sponsored by Councilwoman Venez. A resolution authorizing the city clerk to enter into an agreement for the receipt of bail bonds.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I move for final passage of 14R31.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Venez, second by Councilman Spitali. Final passage of 14R31. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I would like to read this if I could. Whereas the judge of the Hammond City Court has requested that the city clerk make arrangements for the collection of bail bonds by means of credit/debit card or other similar means, and whereas said judge has requested that the Hammond City Clerk enter into a participation agreement with Government Payment Services, Inc., GPS, to facilitate such bail bond collection, a copy of which is attached hereto. Be it resolved by the Hammond Common Council of the City of Hammond that the city clerk is authorized and directed to enter into the attached or a similar participation agreement with GPS, authorizing GPS to act on behalf of the city clerk in processing credit, debit, and prepaid debit card transaction, and the city clerk may make such changes and amendments to the same from time to time all within the discretion of the city clerk. This is a contract that the city clerk is going to enter into with a company called GPS, which will allow prisoners, when released, perhaps over the weekend, and when cash is not so readily available, that they will be able to use credit cards, debit cards. They will be charged. Clerk Golick, will you help me out with that? What
Yes,
is it?
the fee for the bond.
7%.
Pardon?
7%, right?
Right.
Okay.
Continue.
Yes, please.
The Government Payment Services Company will charge 7% of the bond to use the credit card. And as an example, if the bond is $1,000, 7% of that is $21 is what the fee would be for the person using the credit card. Out of that $21, the city of Hammond would then receive 15% of that. And the credit card holder would still have to pay his fees or any other charges he incurs by using the credit card. In the past, the clerk's office, we have only accepted cash bond payments all these years so that we would make sure that we didn't receive a bad check for somebody getting out on bond. Now, the person that's in jail visiting our accommodations at our resort, if they would like to leave sooner than later, they have the option of using their credit card and paying these additional services. In addition, there is absolutely no obligation or responsibility on the city of Hammond or its taxpayers if the credit card is bad or if it's bogus. This GPS company assumes all the responsibility for any extra service charges that may be incurred as a result of the transactions. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R31.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kowinski. Yes. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R31 passes 9-0.
President Opinker, that concludes the reading of the resolutions.
Thank you, Clerk Golick. Moving on to new and unfinished business.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I would like to send a letter to Neighborhood Inc. And thanking them for sponsoring a program throughout my district in honor of the late Reverend Parrish for the best decorated house on the block throughout the district. There were a number of participants. One happens to be in the audience who was also honored for the contest, and that's Ms. King. And so I want to send a letter, I so move.
Councilman Higgs would like to send a letter thanking Neighborhoods, Inc. All those in favor of that letter?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
received the correspondence from Neighborhood Inc. It says, Councilman Higgs, dear Anthony, thanks so much for your contribution. Your donation helped Neighborhood Inc. efforts improving Calumet Region neighborhoods, and your continued support is appreciated. Your support helps us to fulfill our mission to improve, stabilize, beautify, and make a safer neighborhood in Calumet Region. Please tell your friends, neighbors, and coworkers about our organization. Visit our website at www.neighborhoodincsincorporated.com, where you can view all the annual reports dating back to 2003. Best regards, Keith D. Spinks, Executive Director, P.S. Please visit our Facebook page, where we recognize our donors daily on our cover photo.
Any other new unfinished business?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
received the correspondence. Unfortunately, I had been doing some other things within the community, but Ms. King, I received your correspondence as it relates to the Board of Directors and the Youth Promise Act, and I am currently working with our attorney to draft up a resolution in regards to addressing this.
Any other new unfinished business?
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
would like to wish you and your family and all my colleagues on the council a very happy Thanksgiving. I don't think we meet again, or we may. If we do, I'm wishing you an early one. And everyone in the audience, we have a lot to be thankful for. I know we have issues, but we still have a lot to be thankful for. Thank you.
And I'd like to let everybody know our next council meeting will be on Monday, December 15th. Any other new unfinished business?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I'd like to send a letter to code enforcement about the KFC property at 5851 Calumet Avenue. There are TVs as well as carpet and all kinds of debris sitting back where the dumpster was formerly located, and it needs to be cleaned up. So whoever owns the property needs to be cited, as well as we've addressed the lot on the corner of Bauer and Calumet, where all these abandoned vehicles are just sitting there, and it's not a car lot, and none of the cars are being moved. So I'm trying to figure out what's the purpose of them just sitting there. So if we can have a letter to go to the police chief in regards to addressing that, and one to code enforcement in getting that property at 5851 Calumet Avenue cleaned up, where the TV is, sitting back there where the dumpster is, and the carpet and all that other debris. I so move.
Second.
Councilman Higgs made the motion to send a letter to code enforcement in regards to 5851 Calumet Avenue about the cleanup in the back of the property, and also a letter to Police Chief Doty in regards to the cars on Bauer and Calumet. All those in favor? Opposed?
Mr. President.
Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, I have 3 motions there. I'll put them all in one shot here. Clerk Goldlick's got a copy of it. First motion is to have a letter sent to the City Controller, Water Department, Sanitary District, and Port Authority for the names and consultants, for the names of consultants and lawyers paid with amounts, take that back, for the names of consultants with amounts paid to all lawyers and consultants for 2013 to present day 2014. Motion number 2, motion to the City Hammond and the Port Authority for a copy of the lease of the Lost Marsh Pavilion Bar Restaurant contract for 2012, 2013, and 2014. Third one, motion to City Controller and Water Department for a copy of contract with City of Chicago Heights and all other cities. I so move.
Okay, Councilman Hinojosa, as far as your first motion, they're in the claims every 2 weeks. the individuals that are getting paid. There's no need for a motion for that. All you gotta do is read your claims.
I still made a motion. Point of order, I still made a motion there, Mr. President.
Okay, as far as your first motion, we're gonna have a
Point of
roll call
order.
vote on that.
Point of order. Point of order.
We're gonna take one motion at a time.
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. President.
All right, do we have a second on Councilman Hinahouse's ordinance? Or on his motions, his three motions? Do we have a second?
Point of order.
What's your point of order, Councilman Higgs?
The point of order is that if you're going to make a comment as it relates to my colleague, you need to step and relinquish your seat. Allow your vice president to take your seat and voice your opinion. That's Robert's Rules of Order.
No. We have, Councilman Hinojosa made a motion on 3 different letters to be sent. Do I have a second on that?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs,
what was the first motion?
that was in regards to a letter being sent to the clerk, I believe, as far as,
I'll read it again, Mr. President.
go ahead.
Motion to have a letter sent to the City Controller, Water Department, Sanitary District, and Port Authority for the names and consultants with amounts paid to all lawyers and consultants for 2013 to present 2014.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, a second. Clerk Golick, roll call vote on the first motion, our first order.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
No.
Kalwinski. Yes. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
No. Motion passes 7-2. That's, you ladies have the letter on that, right? Okay, second one, Councilman Hinojosa.
Second one. Motion to the City Hammond and the Port Authority for copy of the lease of the Lost Marsh Pavilion Bar Restaurant contract for 2012, 2013, and 2014. I so move.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
No.
Kalwinski. Ulaki.
No.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
No.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
No. Motion passes 5-4. Okay, Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, the third one. Motion to the City Controller and the Water Department for a copy of the contract with the City of Chicago Heights and all other cities for the water usage.
Motion by Councilman Hinojosa, do I have a second? Motion fails.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
I have one more. Recently on Thursday, November 13th, there's a opinion in there that Hammond must work on police diversity. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the last paragraph says, offering the plan Higgs sought should take city council action. The police chief and mayor should work together on this policy and in the process find additional ways to focused efforts on recruiting minorities to join the police force. In other cities, if other cities can do it, so and should Hammond. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion on one of the motions from last meeting. Motion to receive in writing the plan to increase hiring of additional African Americans to the Hammond Police Department, and all findings made public within 60 days. I so move.
Councilman Hinojosa has a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Higgs. Clerk Golick, roll call vote on
A
this letter.
discussion, point of order.
It's not an ordinance.
It is a motion. You have to
Okay,
abide
any
by Robert's
discussion?
Rule of Order. Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs.
I would like to include Hispanics as well as African Americans.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
2 weeks ago, we had a meeting at the Civic Center, and I believe the mayor addressed that, and maybe he would want to address that now.
I'll just wait until I see what the results of the motion are.
Sorry.
I'll wait until you guys vote. I'll address everything after I get done, after you get done.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Excuse me, what is the request again?
Councilman Hinojosa, you want to read it again?
Yes. Motion to receive in writing plan to increase the hiring of additional African Americans and Hispanics to the Hammond Police Department, and all findings made public within 60 days.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali. Vines.
No.
Kalwinski. Ulaki.
No.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
No.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
No. Motion fails
Mr. President?
6-3. Mr.
I
Mayor.
wanted to address the first three motions Councilman Hinojosa brought up, and first motion about, I think the council president was correct when he pointed out that Councilman Hinojosa does have access to claim forms that go through the city council, but I think Councilman Hinojosa was asking for Port Authority, Water, Sanitary District, and I can assure you, on behalf of the Water Department, Sanitary District, and Port Authority, we will comply as best as we can with the councilman's request. So first things first, okay? Second, Councilman Hinojosa also brought up in the second motion a copy of the lease agreement with the owners of Myers Castle who run the restaurant at the Last Marsh Golf Course. I was listening to Councilman Hinojosa's radio show that he had last week, and I can only imagine, I know why he's asking this question now, but I just wanted to point out to the council what's going on here, is Councilman Hinojosa took a civilian, Mr. Urquiza, and his father, in this case, and said disparaging remarks about these civilians on his radio show last week, which is, I imagine, going to be followed up legally, because you can't do that unless it's the truth, and in this case, it's not the truth. He said something to the fact that Mr. Urquiza, who runs the Lost Marsh Golf Course, pays $1 a year in rent, which is absolutely ludicrous. Not a shred of truth to it. How Mr. Hinojosa gets this information and says it about private citizens is beyond me, and I think he's going to have legal issues in the future because of these damaging remarks made against the Urquiza family. I think what you'll see when you ask for the lease and it comes back to you is that is wholly not the case, that Mr. Urquiza pays a market rate. So I have no problem providing you with that lease. In fact, I think it's a good thing. So we can clear this up once and for all, and maybe Councilman Hinojosa could explain why he's making disparaging remarks about civilians. Secondly, in his last motion, Councilman Hinojosa asked for the copy of the lease agreement, or copy of the contract between Chicago Heights and the city of Hammond. This was another disparaging remark Councilman Hinojosa made on his radio show last week about the Urquiza family. Kevin Smith, an attorney for the city that everybody knows quite well, Councilman Hinojosa on the radio show intimated that there was some improper holding company that I was a part of, and we had it in Chicago Heights so that all water that passed through this holding company kicked back a portion of the profits to me and Kevin Smith and the Urquizas. And I'm trying to think, he threw somebody else in there also. Who? My dad. I'm sorry. And I mean, it is absolutely beyond me how he could come up with these reckless theories and throw defamatory statements about civilians. You know, you could say that stuff about me. I'm an elected official, and I can't sue Chico, even though it's completely false and ridiculous what he's saying. I could, but I would lose, because you have the First Amendment right to say damaging things about elected officials. I could say it about you guys as well. But to pull my father and Urquizas and Kevin Smith into your theories and lies, Councilman Hinojosa, it's beyond me how you can come up with this stuff. So you want to get the contract? That's a great idea. You want to get a contract between Danny and the Lost Marsh? That's a great idea. And then get ready, Councilman Hinojosa. You're going to learn a lesson here, because you cannot lie about members of the public like you did on your radio show last week, and you're continuing it today. So I'm glad that you passed those two motions so that we can clear this up once and for all, and then you can clear it up with the Urquiza family, your damaging, defamatory statements.
Mr. President.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Yes,
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs.
You know, we can sit here and go back and forth about the ongoing discussion as it relates to what a person may say and what they may not say. But the fact of it is that we all are elected officials. People are going to say what they want to say. But you know what? The dirty politics, I don't agree with. It's my point.
Any other new unfinished business?
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor?
does dirty politics include stealing campaign yard signs?
Mr. President,
Oh,
since you opened that up,
Councilman Higgs.
I'm so glad you did, Mayor, because I wasn't even going to go there. But since you asked the question,
I wouldn't go there
it's
if I was you either.
illegal to put signs on church property. It's illegal to put signs in people's yards and not ask or even get a yes or no as to when and where. And it's also illegal to have people stalking you. And on top of that, to sit down the street from my home when I get off work and sit in the parking lot. Of course, quite naturally, I have a close relationship with all my constituents. And anytime you put a sign up in the 3rd District, guess what? They call Councilman Higgs. That's how close my relationships are with my constituents.
Thou shalt not steal.
So, Michael Swagger, or whoever that guy is, in relations to this particular incident, I filed a police report for that particular reason. And the editing of all the film needs to stop. If you're going to put it out there, put it out correctly. Don't half-step. You pay Jay Jacobs. The guy works for Jay Jacobs. What's that all about? Are y'all all connected?
Thou shalt
Are
not
we
steal.
missing something here?
Thou shalt not steal.
Well,
You quote the Bible a lot, Councilman Higgs.
Yeah,
Thou
all right.
shalt not steal.
take me to court. I'm waiting. Take me to court. Take me to court.
Any other new unfinished business?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilwoman Venez.
I would like to announce that the Hammond Education Foundation is partnering with the Toll Theater with their presentation of A Fabulous 50s Christmas on December 11th, which is a Thursday. The Toll Theater is at 5205 Holman Avenue. There is a reception with hors d'oeuvres and a silent auction and a cash bar at 5:30 p.m., and the show begins at 7 p.m. The admission is $40 per person, and all proceeds go to the Hammond Education Foundation. And before I'm interrupted, I would like to read a list of the Community and Crime Watch meetings that are coming up. On Tuesday, November 18th, East Hammond Pullman Crime Watch will meet at the Ophelia Steen Center, 6:30 p.m. Edison Community Watch will meet Wednesday, December 3rd at Edison School, 6:30 p.m. Edison Community Watch on the Road will meet Friday, December 5th, 1 p.m. at the Golden Manor Senior Apartments. Hessville Crime Watch will meet Thursday, November 20th, 7 p.m. at the Gene Shepherd Center. Irving Community Watch will meet Friday, December 5th, 9:15 a.m. at Irving School. Lafayette Neighborhood Watch will meet Wednesday, November 19th at Lafayette School, 6:30 p.m. Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association will meet Tuesday, November 25th, 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion on Goslin. The South Hammond Crime Watch will meet Thursday, November 20th at the Hammond Housing Authority building at 7 p.m. And the Whiting Robertsdale Crime Watch will meet Thursday, December 11th, 6:30 p.m. at Calumet College. And that is how change happens, one gesture, one person, one moment at a time.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Venez, what was the date on that first function?
For the Fabulous 50s Christmas?
Yes.
That is Thursday, December 11th at the Toll Theater, beginning at 5:30 p.m. That's with hors d'oeuvres and cocktails and silent auction, and the show begins at 7.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs.
As it relates to some of the dialogue and conversation, also, since I'm so biblical and I have a relationship with God, it says, vengeance is mine, said the Lord.
Any other new unfinished business? Any other new unfinished business? New unfinished business is now closed. Open up for public expression. Our first speaker will be William O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I was a very young boy, I learned race relations on the floor of the Hammond Civic Center. I learned that you could make a lot of friends when you hit the open man on the fast break or when you hit winners playing ping pong. Next, it was on to the Edison Little League Pirates, where in 1964 I made the last out in the city championship game. Please don't tell anybody that. But don't you see, we were too young to consider or accept discrimination. We were too young to forge the bonds of prejudice. Instead, we had team purpose, team goals, team commitment, and clearly defined team goals. Unfortunately, ethnically, Hammond has none until now. So I encourage all of you to forget everything I ever told you and remember the following 10 words. This is Hammond, Indiana, where no one is a minority, where no one is a minority, where the Knights of Columbus, no one is a minority, where Bishop Knoll, no one is a minority, where the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce, where no one is a minority. Only these principles endure, and the people who live them, and all men and women really will be created equal.
Amen.
Next speaker will be Carlotta King.
Good evening. I had the pleasure.
Please state your address, please.
Sir?
State your address.
1004 Highland Street. Excuse me.
Thank you.
This morning and this afternoon, I had the pleasure of attending the My Brother's Keeper initiative in the city of Gary. For those who don't know what My Brother's Keeper is, I would encourage you to Google it. And in February 2014, President Obama launched the My Brother's Keeper, MBK, initiative to address persistent opportunity gaps faced by boys and young men of color and ensure that all young people can reach their full potential. The initiative seeks to organize and capitalize on the commitment of community leaders in order to reach that goal. Initially, the President of the United States encouraged our mayors, tribal leaders, and county executives to accept the President's MBK Community Challenge. It also provides a process framework for the development of an effective plan of action. It also define the 6 goals central to the challenge and to promote data-driven strategies. So I'm encouraging our council to Google that initiative and see if this is something that we think our city should adapt. And perhaps I'm especially encouraging our mayor and his administration to reach out and find out about this initiative, because again, it's a challenge that President Obama made to all of our mayors in this country to try to address these issues. And in my attendance there today in Gary, all the vested folks came together: police chief, policemen, Gary School Corporation, the NIPSCOs, all of the major corporations were there, and we had a real conversation about our community ills. And I think this is something that our city could adapt. So again, I'm encouraging everyone within the sound of my voice to Google this initiative, and again, I encourage our mayor to look into this, and perhaps this is something that we can do as well as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. George Stoya. Last speaker, Mr. Alvin Cheeks.
Alvin Cheeks, 832 Merrill Street. First of all, like to say, Willie T. Motif is no longer with us, AKA Sweetwater. I'd like to thank Magic Johnson, who today gave me a game ball to give to Sweetwater's family. Thank the staff from the White House for acknowledging Willie T. That was a great opportunity today to work with Magic, and a gentleman gave over $700 million of investment capital that's going to be purged into the city of Gary. Like to thank the Special Operations Group from Langley for inviting me to join the team from the White House. It was a great opportunity. Like to thank the president and Biddy Bones from the NBA for doing something nice for Sweetwater's family and ensuring that he gets very properly. Like to thank Valley Casinos for going to have a tribute day for Sweetwater in Las Vegas. So I really want to thank Steve Wynn and the Clayton Potter family. Also, Councilman Higgs, as usual, that truck with the turkeys is going to arrive at 12 o'clock like usual to show the love that you give to the community. And like to thank you for making sure those people eat for Thanksgiving, Councilman Higgs. So I really love you for that, brother. And the Clay Potter family assures you that every single person that you name that wants to eat for Thanksgiving, no matter how much it costs, we'll have Thanksgiving dinner. So I love you for doing that, Councilman, and thank you on behalf of the Clay Potter families and Valley Inc. and State Farm Insurance. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeks. That ends our public expression.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I'd like to open up the council back, reopen the floor. I so move.
Is that a motion to go back to new unfinished business?
That's correct.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa, go back to newer business. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The initial letter that I had requested, one is for KFC. I got that, the correct address, but that's Becker in Calumet where the cars are placed. So just so point of clarity as it relates to that. And also as it relates to all my constituents, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. And certainly if there's anything I can do for you, certainly if I have to spend every dime I have to make sure that you eat, you will eat on Thanksgiving. God bless you all.
Any other new unfinished business? A motion to adjourn?
Motion.
I have a second? Second. All those in favor?